I have something unusual in front of me today. This is my buddy Adam's MP 2016 rotary mixer from Rane, and below it we have the XP 2016 expansion board, which is actually what's broken. And this combination is supposedly pretty well sought after in DJ circles. Now Adam told me at the time that these were special because of these rotary knobs that just give you finer control over the transitions. He told me that back in the day there were only a couple of these in the New Orleans area, so he'd rent this thing out and he actually almost made his money back doing that. But recently he sold this thing for $3,000, and when it arrived the buyer actually found out that this channel right here did not work. So Adam told me that he sent it off to a repair shop and the guy was just uncomfortable doing the repair, and so he attempted to do it himself, and he started by removing this potentiometer, but I believe he must have stopped when he noticed how messed up this amplifier was down here. And he told me that he was not equipped to replace this thing and asked if I could give it a shot. So in this video I'm going to attempt probably the most stressful repair I've put up on this channel so far in an attempt to fix this thing up so he can sell it. So let's actually get a closer look at this damage to see what we're up against. So this is the most obvious damage right here, this amplifier chip. I have absolutely no idea what could have caused this, but you can see that several chips in the area here are impacted. We're gonna have to see if these pads are still salvageable here. This char seems to go pretty deep here. I'm gonna have to really do some cleanup work on this guy. Scrub it down with some isopropyl alcohol and see how much of the char I can get off. I saw somewhere online that this char can be conductive, so we really don't want to leave any of this on the board when we're testing it out. Something that I forgot to mention is that this board has been fixed before, but it was done by the OEM, so maybe some of that sticky residue is flux. We can see there's a little bit of char marks here between this switch and the connector. So the third channel seems to have the same thing going on, all concentrated in the same area as well. I'm not sure what this pin is here, but it's heavily burnt. It was burnt on the first and this amplifier right here. So something catastrophic must have happened to these amplifiers, specifically on just a couple of channels so far. Maybe some sort of bad input was fed in while those channels were enabled. We have this strange glob of char right here. It's just kind of loose. And it looks like we've got stuff like that scattered all over the board. And as you can see right here on channel number 4, we do have a bit of corrosion on both of these little resistors right here, but not so much on the actual amplifier. There is all kind of sticky residue on these switches as well. It looks almost like some sticky liquid spilled into this switch. This amplifier on channel number 5 looks fine, but this right here does not. We have a ripped trace coming from one of the pins where the potentiometer was pulled off. There's some weird coloring right here that I'm not sure about. It's just a piece of fuzz. Now, flipping this board around, we can see the extent of the damage that this board suffered when this potentiometer was removed. I can see that there's a leg stuck in here still. So to summarize what we found under the microscope, channels 1, 3, and 4 have damage down by their amplifiers and these two resistors underneath the amplifiers. And then up here, we're missing a potentiometer, obviously, and we have a ripped trace between one of the legs of the potentiometer and one of these resistors. But before I get started soldering anything, I want to clean all of the char off of this board so we don't have it shorting out anything. And to do that, I'm just going to use some isopropyl alcohol and this plastic brush. I'm not going to scrub too hard in this area right here because I don't want to rip the trace up farther. So now that everything is cleaned, I think I'm going to get into replacing this potentiometer and fixing this trace. Unfortunately, I was unable to glue this down, or I tried sticking the soldering iron in here and welding the plastic. It just wasn't very sturdy, so I looked up and luckily I was able to find a replacement on eBay for this switch. Now, unfortunately, it ran me $30. So one little tiny mistake can lead to a real expensive replacement. Adam has provided what looks to be 4 different amplifiers. The resistors, though, I don't have any of these resistors, so I may need to buy some of those. He's also provided 1 replacement potentiometer. So the next thing that I'm going to do is put this thing under the microscope. I'm going to cut off what remains of this trace right here. So what I'm going to do is pass some copper wire up through the hole and solder it to that resistor with the ripped trace. And I should be able to wrap that underneath the board and use some solder mask to hold it in place. This is actually the first time I'm attempting to repair a trace like this, so I hope it goes well. So I'm going to move over to the microscope now and get started on that. So as you can see, the trace right here between this resistor and this leg of the potentiometer is completely ripped. So I'm going to come in here with a little X-Acto knife and cut off the trace. As you can see, the little pad around this leg has been completely ripped off, and I'm not sure if that's going to be necessary. I'm not even sure how I could go about replacing that. So first I'm just going to put a little bit of flux on this area. And I guess I'm just going to come in with the wire from the top here. And then I'm just going to stuff this other end through the actual hole. I'm going to brush this as gently as possible to remove the flux. I'm only going in this one direction because I don't want to stress the wire too much. And I think the goal here is going to be to cover all of this exposed wire here, not the actual part that's fitting through this through hole. That actually seems to be a bit too large of a blob. Maybe we can dab off some of this excess. So before I actually let this set, I'm going to remove this hair. Oh, this is a disaster. Whatever, let's cure this thing and scrape off the excess. So I'm not sure how long I'm supposed to hold this thing here, but I'm going to hold it for maybe 5 minutes or so. Now hopefully this will hold the wire in place on this side. So as you can see, the curing is finished. Everything seems to be held pretty well in place here. So this should be pretty simple. All I'm going to do is apply some more solder mask and just kind of use the adhesion of it to keep this from moving. So let's go ahead and just apply some more solder mask. We're just going to hold this down with the tweezers and we're going to shine our UV light at this. So unfortunately my SD card just killed itself and I lost about 9 minutes of footage. So let me get you up to speed on what's going on here. I've got the board propped up on these 2 cardboard boxes and I just inserted this new switch. I pushed it down through the holes and it just held in place firmly. And I got it soldered down for the most part, starting with these 2 pegs right here. The one on the right side is making contact with the little pad, but the one on the left side actually was missing the pad, so it's not making perfect contact. But it is firmly in place, so I don't think we're going to have to do anything there. So now I have to go through on the other side and make sure that everything is attached properly. But while I'm under here, I want to clean this one up as well, because nothing really looks well attached. This is the other replaced potentiometer. So I'm just going to put some flux right here and reflow all of this solder. Now that is looking a lot more firm. Both of these are on here pretty firmly. And now that I've got it flipped this way, it sits flat and I want to put this under the microscope, especially because I repaired that trace right here and I really need to make sure I'm delicate when I'm adding solder. So having a look at this guy under the microscope, I definitely want to add some solder here, probably to all of these pins, just a little bit. So yeah, let's get a little bit of flux in here. So after cleaning up this area around the amplifier on the first channel, I noticed several different bits of damage that were shared between the different damaged channels. The first is that these 2 resistors down here, both sides of those were covered in the char, and actually it looks like this pad has been corroded completely. That is very strange. I'm going to have to make sure this is connected, and I want to test both of these resistors here to make sure that they're actually functioning. And you'll see right here, one of these pins, this 3rd pin, is the most damaged out of all of them. And looking at the pinout diagram for this amplifier, this is actually the voltage in pin. And you can see on the other damaged channels that this is the most damaged pin. So I guess the first thing that I'm going to do is put some flux right here on this chip. And I want to get it pulled up and inspect the damage underneath it. And now I'm just going to heat the area and melt the flux. So I've got a grip on this amplifier with my tweezers, and I'm going to come in with the hot air gun and focus specifically on this chip. Oh boy. You could see that black stuff bubbling up as I was getting that chip off of here. The smell of it is not good. Just poke around here and see how bad this is. Well, it's coming off fairly easily, actually. I want to pull off one of these resistors just to test it off of the board and see if it's damaged. If it's not damaged, I'm not going to pull off every single one of them. When I test it connected to the board, it goes up and down and up and down. I guess it's charging this capacitor, or that one. I'm not really sure. But there is still some resistance here, so as long as I can pull this off and confirm that the resistance matches the schematic, then I'm just going to put it back on here, and I'm going to assume that this chip is the only thing that needs to be replaced in this block. So it does measure 100 kiloohms, which is exactly what it's supposed to. So since that appeared to be the most damaged resistor, I'm going to say that the resistors are good. So let me go ahead and solder that guy back on here. So I've put some flux on the board and I've placed the new chip on top. Now I'm going to come in with the hot air gun and just heat up the area and melt the flux. And now I'm going to come in a little bit closer and solder this amplifier. And there we have it. That's one amplifier replaced. All of the legs are making contact. Alright, so once again, I'm just going to come in here and clean this up a little bit. Once again, we've got here this big old block of nastiness. Alright, so now that we have replaced the damaged amplifiers, all I have left to do is replace this switch right here. So I'm just going to put some flux on here. And this is super sketchy being on top of my plastic mat. So I'm just gripping this switch right here with these tweezers and I'm pulling down. And I'm going to come in with the hot air gun. This thing does not want to come off. I'm going to go in here with my soldering iron and some solder wick just to get some of this solder off. Maybe it'll be easier to melt all of this after that. Now I'm going to go in here with my wire clippers and just clip off the excess part of this pin. Now hopefully that'll make it easier to melt some of this. So I've spread on a pretty thick layer of flux and I'm going to come back in with the hot air gun. There we go. The old switch is out of there. One of our holes is still blocked here. And let's solder on this new switch. We have a bit too much solder on this one. There we have it. So now I'm just going to come and clean all of this extra flux off of here. And we should do a little scrub down of the board. I've learned my lesson from last time and I have all 4 of the switches in the right position. I really need to let this thing dry now because I have soaked it in isopropyl alcohol. So I'm trying to set up and test this thing, and this is what I'm working with here. I've got this ribbon cable stretched into this box where the board is actually set down in some copper contacts. There's 2 power inputs. I wasn't sure which I should actually use, and it's using this strange power cable I've never seen before. Kind of looks like an Ethernet cable. And then he's given me this collection of cables here. One of them has 2 little connectors here. There's a red and a white. I'm assuming, since this is the only one with 2 inputs, that this goes into the left and right input channels, but I don't know which color goes to which, so I'm gonna have to look that up. And then I need to figure out how to get audio out of this thing. So I've just plugged this top one in, and you can see the power light has come on right here. I gave Adam a call, and he told me that we just need to plug in some headphones right here and set the channel to be whichever one we're trying to test. So I guess I'll be happy if I can just decipher this interface to get some noise coming in and out and mess with these little equalizer knobs. But anyway, I haven't plugged this guy in yet. I don't know what it's going to do when I plug it in, but I want to kind of pulse power to it just to make sure there's nothing shorted on here that I'm not aware of. And I'm going to do that trying out a thermal camera that this company Topdon sent to me for free just to use in my video. And I've really been having fun messing around with it. It just plugs straight into the bottom of a phone, and then you download their app and go. Very simple. I didn't have to make an account or anything. The build quality is pretty solid, and it comes in this little carrying case. It's got this little USB-C extender cable that also has a USB on the other side, so maybe you can plug this thing into a computer. It's got a nice little microfiber cloth for cleaning the lens. And then it's got this adapter for Apple phones, I believe. I don't know. But I'm very impressed with the image quality of this thing. You're about to see it in a second. So big thanks to Topdon. I'm going to use this in a bunch of future videos. So I've gone ahead and listened to some audio that I got in through my speakers over here, wired into the back of this, and then I've plugged in my headphones over here. I've gone through each channel, and I've changed it to aux 1. I've gone over here, and I have changed the headphone channel, which I think is doing something. I don't know, but I can definitely hear when we change the different equalizer knobs and the mix volume. So I went through all of the different channels, and the only one that is still not working is channel number 3. So actually, I'll show you on screen right now the thermal camera footage from channel number 3 right here. And if you look closely at channel number 3 when I'm panning over the amplifier, it is noticeably colder than the other ones. And that's a little bit concerning considering it's a carbon copy of the channel right next to it. So what's cool is that with a thermal camera, we can visibly see that this chip is drawing less power than the rest. So now we just need to probe around and find out why. Alright, so I think the issue here is that the voltage input pin actually, when it fried up, it took off some of the trace. And this leg is not making a solid connection. So when I resoldered this, it did not connect properly. You can see it's wiggling around if you look closely. So I think the play here is to put some more flux on here and move it slightly to the right and just make sure that everything's hooked up properly. Alright, so I've moved this guy to the right just a tiny bit, and that leg looks pretty firmly on there now. So that was actually it, guys. I just put this thing back in here and I tested the channel. It all works just fine. My buddy is going to be very happy about this one. I can't wait to show it to him tomorrow. So if you made it this far, thank you very much for watching my video. If you had noticed, I upgraded my video quality to 4K, so you should be able to see this in a higher resolution. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.